Hello, Storytale Trails friends. Before we begin our adventure today, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Storytale Trails for more great stories. And when we finish, I'd love to hear in the comments what magical tale you'd like us to explore next. Now, settle in, make yourself comfy, and let's step into a world of gingerbread houses, clever plans, and one very surprising oven. Once upon a time, in a tiny cottage at the very edge of a great green forest, lived a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel. Hansel was about 10, with messy blonde hair that always seemed to have a leaf or two stuck in it. Gretel was 8, with neat brown braids and the brightest hazel eyes you could imagine. They loved each other very much and always looked out for one another, even when times were tough. And right now, times were, well, very, very tough. Their father, a kind but tired woodcutter, worked hard every day chopping wood in the forest. But no matter how much he worked, there never seemed to be enough food on the table. The cupboards echoed when you opened them, and the bread in the bread box was more crumbs than loaf. But even though they didn't have much, they always tried to share what they had. One night, while Hansel and Gretel were lying in bed listening to the wind whistle outside, they overheard their father talking with his new wife. She wasn't their real mother. Hansel and Gretel's real mother had passed away when they were little. But she was the sort of person who thought more about her own stomach than anyone else's. "We don't have enough food for all of us," she said sharply. "Tomorrow we will take the children into the forest and leave them there. We can't feed them anymore." Hansel's eyes widened in the dark. He could feel Gretel's hand trembling in his. "Don't worry," he whispered to her. "I'll think of something." And here's where we can pause for just a moment, friends. Because Hansel did something that's a great skill for all of us. When you face a problem, don't panic. First, take a breath. Then think about your options. That's exactly what Hansel did. The next morning, Hansel woke up before everyone else and slipped outside. The pale dawn light made the forest look like it was covered in silver. He bent down and began picking up smooth white pebbles. Into his pockets they went, one by one, until they were full. "These will help us find our way home," he thought. Later, their stepmother called cheerfully, "We're going for a walk in the forest. Bring your coats." Hansel and Gretel exchanged a knowing glance. Off they went, following their father and stepmother into the deep woods. Every few steps, Hansel let a pebble slip from his pocket onto the path. Plink, plonk, plink. He made sure no one saw. Gretel, walking beside him, pretended to be looking at the flowers, but was really watching her brother's hand. They walked for a long time, until the trees grew so close together that the sunlight could barely peek through. Finally, their father and stepmother stopped. "Why don't you children rest here while we go gather firewood?" their stepmother said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And off they went, disappearing among the trees. Hansel and Gretel waited and waited, but no one came back. "Don't worry," Hansel said with a grin. "Follow me." And he led Gretel back along the path, spotting the bright white pebbles one after another until, hooray, they reached their little cottage. Their father was overjoyed to see them, but their stepmother, well, she didn't look happy at all. The next day, things got even harder at home. The bread was gone, the cupboard was empty, and the stepmother was in a foul mood. That night, Hansel and Gretel overheard her again. "We will take them deeper into the forest tomorrow," she said. "And this time they won't find their way back." Hansel tried to sneak out for more pebbles, but the door was locked tight. So he did the best he could. He crumbled up the last bit of bread he had and tucked it into his pocket. The next morning, off they went again, walking deeper and deeper into the forest. This time, Hansel dropped tiny crumbs instead of pebbles. "We'll just follow them home," he whispered to Gretel. But here's where something important happened. A moment that reminds us that even good plans can go wrong, and that's okay. We just have to be ready to think of new ones. Because when Hansel turned to look for the crumbs, they were gone. Every single one. Birds had swooped down and gobbled them up. Night fell. The forest grew dark and full of strange sounds. A rustle here, an owl's hoot there. But Hansel kept his voice steady for Gretel's sake. Don't worry, we'll find something. They wandered until the moon rose, casting silver light over the moss and ferns. Then, what was that? A sweet, sugary smell drifted through the trees. They followed it until they came to the most extraordinary sight they had ever seen. A little house made entirely of sweets. The walls were gingerbread, the roof was dripping with icing, the windows were sugar panes, and the fence was made of candy canes. Without even thinking, Hansel broke off a piece of the wall and nibbled it. Gretel licked some frosting from a windowsill. "It's delicious," she giggled. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and out stepped an old woman. She looked like someone's grandmother, with a purple shawl and a warm smile. "Well, well," she said kindly. "You poor children. You must be starving. Come in, come in. Now, here's a little lesson in listening to your instincts. Sometimes people who seem nice at first might not have the best intentions, and Hansel and Gretel were about to find that out." The woman served them the most delicious feast. Cakes, pies, biscuits, roasted vegetables, and fresh bread. Hansel and Gretel ate until they could hardly keep their eyes open. "You may sleep here tonight," the woman said sweetly. But in the morning, things changed. The old woman's eyes were no longer soft and kind. They were sharp and cold. She was a wicked witch, and she had built her candy house to lure children in. She grabbed Hansel and locked him in a wooden cage. "Fatten him up," she cackled, "and you, little girl, will be my servant." Days passed. Each morning, the witch told Hansel to stick his finger through the bars so she could feel if he was getting plumper. But Hansel, clever as ever, poked out a thin chicken bone instead. The witch's eyesight wasn't very good, and she thought he was still skinny. Gretel worked hard but kept thinking about how to escape. And here's where we get another little educational tip. Teamwork is powerful. When two people share ideas and help each other, they can solve even the trickiest problems. One day, the witch grew impatient. "Enough, I'll eat him anyway. Gretel, heat up the oven." Gretel did as she was told, but when the witch leaned in to check the fire, Gretel gave her a shove, right into the oven. Quick as a flash, she shut the heavy door. The witch gave a screech, and that was the last they heard of her. Gretel rushed to free Hansel from the cage. "Come on, let's get out of here." But before they left, they noticed the witch's cupboard was full of gold coins, jewels, and shiny trinkets. "These will help, Father," Hansel said. They filled a sack and hurried out into the sunlight. The forest seemed friendlier now. Birds chirped above and a path opened before them. They walked until they reached the edge of the trees and saw their father's cottage. Their father ran to them, tears in his eyes. "My children, I thought I'd lost you forever." Hansel and Gretel told him everything, and when he saw the gold and jewels, his eyes grew wide. Not because he wanted riches, but because he knew they would never go hungry again. As for the stepmother, well, she had left the cottage long ago, and none of them missed her one bit. From that day on, Hansel, Gretel, and their father lived happily and safely, always remembering the lessons they'd learned. Think before you act, work together, trust your instincts, and never ever underestimate the power of kindness and clever thinking. And so, my Storytale Trails friends, our sugary, adventurous tale comes to an end. Remember, just like Hansel and Gretel, you can face challenges with courage and creativity. If you enjoyed this magical story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Storytale Trails for more great stories. And I'd love to know in the comments, if you could build your dream house out of anything, what would it be made of? Candy? Chocolate? Maybe even pizza? Until next time, keep dreaming big and exploring new tales. The end.